we were talking about interest rates. Obviously, before the interest rates hike, there was a global pandemic that was happening in the world.
Yes.
And that affected the housing market as well as everything else in the world.
Sure.
And what were those effects? Like, in your professional opinion, what type of effects that you saw in mortgage deals? Because I remember during the pandemics, rents were super low. And I think interest rates were also low.
Sure.
But the prices were like skyrocketing.
Sure.
So if you can combine, all of these, like the COVID pandemic and then this recent global financial situation in the world.
Sure. So
what would you say about that? Yeah.
I think the effects of COVID have, in one way, they've diminished. In another way, they're kind of the issue that we're dealing with today. So what I mean by that is, firstly, what we saw during COVID was obviously people weren't able to move around, so people weren't moving into new homes, they weren't buying, the velocity of transactions just dropped off a cliff.
Yeah,
pretty much what we expected. Post-COVID, it's picked up again, and we're kind of back to normal sort of levels of transactions and people moving around and what we'd expect to see. However, the ways in which we dealt with COVID in terms of basically printing a lot of money in order to throw into the economy to keep the economy going has been part of the cause for the levels of inflation that we're seeing. Not the only cause, but there's
one of the causes.
It's a contributing factor.
It's a decreased velocity, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. So as a result of that inflation, that's what's causing rising interest rates. Yeah. So you could say COVID was a significant part of that sort of process. Without COVID, would we have this? Who knows? But in short, I think the effects of COVID in that way have kind of disappeared. The other thing that has changed a little bit as well is remote working. Although a lot of people are trying to get back to office working and what have you, but the level of remote working increased. So as a result, we've had people move away from central hubs and move further afield so they can get more space or what have you. So what that has done in local areas is it's really boosted house prices and pushed up house prices in certain areas where they are more attractive for whatever reason, and people have moved out to those areas. Yeah. Again, that's died out a little bit, but in certain areas, that's been a real thing as well.
Yeah. Most of the companies now actually requiring people to be in the office at least 1 or 2 days a week.
Yeah.
But, working remote is fantastic. I really like it.
Personally. I agree. I was working remote before it was cool.
Yes.